Gold Replay number 2. Hello there folks, SavageBunny here, bringing you my second ever live commentary battle. Now, as we look at the screen here and the beautiful graphics of the units and their corresponding descriptions and unit cards, let's talk about who I'm actually playing today. My opponent here is Rick. He's currently part of the MGO clan, and he's been in all different sorts of clans, and he's been around in the Empire Total War scene for probably a couple years now, and he is a pretty solid player. He's not one of the best, he's not like elite, but he's solid, he knows what he's doing. So in this battle, I brought Sweden here. If you look at the build, my army consists of a general, 6 goons, 5 rifles, 6 line, 1 militia, and a throwaway general's bodyguard unit that I purchased because I just had that much money left over, and because why not buy an extra general? And over here, look at my opponent's army, Rick. He's brought Poland, and he has something like 6 line, 7 goons, 1 hussar, 1 ulan, 5 rifles. And so, in my opinion, this is actually a pretty solid Polish army. In case you didn't know, what really defines Poland is their cavalry units. Their line units are kind of generic, so are their rifles, although their line units are cheap, so if you want to bring a bunch of them, you can. However, like I said before, what really sets apart Poland, in my opinion, is their cav. And so what Rick here has done is he's brought 2 melee cav units along with 7 goons, which brings us to a total of 9 cavalry units, which is quite a lot. And here you can see me in chat complimenting his army build. So, Rick picked Poland to counter my Sweden, which I think is actually a pretty good choice. So basically, what sets Sweden apart from everyone else is, once again, their cavalry also, except they don't really have access to, any like special elite cavalry like Poland does, but their light dragoon units are huge. Their light dragoon units are 75 men, when usually, for every other faction, they're either 60 or 45. So Sweden has these huge, just humongous light dragoon units that can kind of just outshoot everyone. However, it's important to remember that light dragoons do suck in melee, and so that's why I said it was smart of Rick to bring Poland, because Poland is known for its melee cav. So if Rick can take his melee cav and just kind of, just get into melee with my light dragoons, then it's game over, because my light dragoons will die and I'll be left with no cav. So, keeping that in mind for this game, my main strategy, or my main goal, is to not get caught by his melee cav. One of the weaknesses of melee cav is, of course, that they can't shoot, and so if I can get his melee cav caught on one of my units and shoot back, then they're dead. So this is something you want to take note of. On the very left flank, as you can see, his rifle was protruding out. Look at that. So I moved up my line to A, meat shield for my own rifles, but B, to try to get some shots off with my own light dragoons. So if you see on the very left here, I ran my goons up to get in range. See how his rifles were protruding without any protection, just by a couple feet? Those are the small things you want to look for in each game. So if you can take advantage of those small little openings that your opponent offers you, just taking a goon volley here or a goon volley there, you can just slowly whittle down your opponent until you just slowly gain more and more of an advantage. Same thing in the middle goes here. He moved up his 2 light dragoons to try to counter my just to try to put some pressure onto my 3 line in the middle, or my 2 line in my militia. But he moved into range with his goons, so I moved up my rifles and just took some pot shots at him, killed a couple of his goons. When you're Poland, or when you're, for that matter, any faction playing up against Sweden, you really want to be careful with your goons, because if you lose any units or any men in your light dragoon units that you can't really afford to lose, then you're just increasing the deficit between the already huge 75 men unit light dragoon units of Sweden. So here you can see that I'm starting to skirmish in the middle. I'm moving up my line to try to shield for my goons, try to take some pot shots at his rifles. I see his goons coming up in the distance, so I pull back because I don't want to get shot. So my rifles, they're not in range of his line, but they are in range of his rifles, the very far line on the right. And once again, that's another opening that you do want to take advantage of. See, they are shooting at his rifles, and his line is not shooting back. And so right now I'm just kind of taking advantage of the mistakes that Rick is really making. I'm not really, doing anything too drastic, just kind of skirmishing in the middle. Here you can see that Rick is moving his rifle over here on the left, but he's moving it through the range of my own riflemen, so I just take a volley at him. And so that's another thing. The path that your units take in Empire Total War, they pretty much just go like straight onto where you want them to go. So if he's trying to move his rifle from one place to another, and point A and point B are both outside of range, what you have to keep in mind is that the distance between point A and point B might be in range of another rifle, so in the process of moving between one point and the other, you might run into enemy fire. And so here you can see me, I'm moving up my line to kind of try to shield from my 3 goons. I'm trying to take some pot shot at his rifles. My line almost routes, but they don't, thank God. He charges my line, or actually he charges my militia in the middle, but I have my 2 goons behind it to shoot his melee cav down. And so remember how I said Poland's melee cav is what really sets them apart? Those are the tools that Rick needs. Those are the tools that Rick has. He has the tools to beat me in those 2 melee cav. But what he's done with one of them, at least, is he's just ran them willy-nilly into my militia with goons behind them. So he pretty much wasted that 1 melee cav. His second melee cav, right there in the middle, is getting shot again. If you look right there, it's that Polish unit between those Ulans right there. They're just getting shot. So he's not supporting them. He's not giving them any cover. They're just getting shot. They're not even getting to melee. And so now that they're being shot to death, it's just my 6 huge goons against his 7 goons, one of which I think has already died. And so here you can see Rick has kind of blobbed a lot of his goons up in the middle. That's something that you don't want to do. Goon blobbing is very, very dangerous in Empire Total War for many, many reasons. One, they can shoot each other in the back because they're just all in one blob instead of orderly ranks. 2, they become a lot more vulnerable to enemy fire because it's a much more condensed target. 3, as Rick has done here, you can notice that he didn't really have any cover or any line infantry nearby or in front of them to cover for them. And so that just makes them even more exposed of a target. It's just kind of asking to get shot and mass routed. So luckily here, I didn't really take advantage of the opportunity too well because some of my goons were reloading, so he managed to get away scratch-free. But in general, if someone makes that mistake, it's not really one that a good player will let you get away with. So I can see that there's a bit of a hole in the middle of my army, so move the line over from my right flank to cover that hole. And at this point, it's just a matter of keeping up the skirmishing because I have the advantage right now. I have the advantage in the cavalry department and the light infantry department. So if I just kind of hold and just kind of push where I can and just wait for more mistakes, I can just kind of win pretty handily. Right here, I'm moving my goons back because I don't really want them to get shot by the rifles. Same with that line right there. In the middle here, if you can see the protruding edge of that one rifle, it's past the line infantry, so I might be able to shoot at it without getting shot by the line infantry. So if you look at these 2 goons in this militia right here, they're going to take some shots on the very, very edge. Yep, there you go. See? The very edge of that one rifle. And once again, that's another one of those small openings that you want to look for. On the right, on the very right flank, you can see that he has 2 line infantry versus my 1. And so therefore, that's not an engagement I want to take, so I'm just running away. I'm cutting back. In the middle, his line infantry right there, it's kind of angled towards my line. He wants to try to shoot me, but I'm going to take some shots with my goons and then eventually, hopefully, run back. There we go, I'm running back. It's important to know that I do have 2 generals' bodyguards. Sweden, one of their weaknesses is that their morale are kind of low. Their morale is pretty low, especially on their goon units. It says it has the same, but with 75 men, they're very prone to mass routes. So having your real general nearby can kind of help. And having my fake general, I guess, that's not actually my general, but just an extra general's bodyguard unit, I mean, I guess that kind of helps too. So he ran his 2 goons up here to try to take some shots, but he didn't have any cover again. So you can see I'm going to run and get some shots on him again. And so that's another lesson. When you try to run your goons up to try to get shots on the enemy, always make sure you have line infantry or militia or rifles or just something shielding from them in the front. Because light dragoons are very, very important. They're the units that Empire Total War kind of revolve around. If you don't really protect them, then the game is pretty much lost. So right here, Rick is kind of moving his 2 goons over towards my left flank. So I see this and I don't want him to get any, I don't want to let him get any openings. So I'm moving my 2 light dragoons over there too to try to mirror what he's doing and make sure he doesn't take advantage of anything. In the middle, my line is just kind of duking out with his. At this point, I'm kind of content to just kind of sit still and just keep, skirmishing it out. Because, once again, I had the advantage. It's up to Rick to do something, because if he just keeps up the skirmishing, he's going to lose pretty handily. And so on the right here, you can see I launched my spare general into his rifles. And I'm just going to move up my rifles to try to get shots. In the middle, my 2 light dragoons, I'm moving those back. I'm charging his rifles over here, checking to make sure there are no stakes, because I've made that mistake many, many times before. But these rifles are completely unprotected, so this goon charge will pretty much kill all of them if I pull through. In the middle here, you can see I have my 2 line versus his 4 goons. He's running his 4 goons up to try to get shots. And I don't know if I notice in time. I do notice in time, but he tries to route some of my units, which I think he succeeds in routing my... Oh no, he doesn't. It stopped wavering. So I ran my goons up to try to get some counter shots, but what Rick here does, he kind of tries to charge my rifles. Although they might look open for charging at first, it's important to realize that in the immediate vicinity I have around 3 goons in like 4 or 5 line, and so these suicide charges, or these charges, they might look very tempting at first, but it's important to remember that these aren't melee cav units, these are light dragoons. So if you charge them and they get caught in their units, enemy units nearby like mine, they're going to get killed pretty easily. At this point, it's pretty much GG. His center has kind of crumbled. His light dragoons are all about to die because they're caught on my rifles, and my goons are about to shoot them all. His right flank, or my right flank, his left flank, where he had 2 line versus my 1 line, he didn't take advantage of that. He just kind of sat there. He didn't push where he should be pushing. On the left, it was 2 versus 2, so he couldn't really push. But what Rick did wrong this game, in my opinion, the first major mistake he made was he wasted those 2 melee cav. Those 2 melee cav were the tools with which he should have done some damage in this game with, but instead he got them stuck on a militia, and he got them stuck out in the open without any cover, and so they got shot by all of my goons, and they subsequently died. So once those 2 units were off the field, I pretty much already had a pretty significant advantage, because I had the advantage afterwards in every single department, except for maybe the rifle department, but I quickly gained an advantage through that, through my skirmishing, through my superior goon units. Here you can see I'm just charging my goons through his 1 line. It's 60 men against my, 60 goons, so I'll just charge through, pull through, then clean up and get rid of those 2 line, or those 2 goons left. So what I do want to commend Rick on for doing this game was his being proactive. So with a lot of Empire Total War players, especially a lot of European players, what they'll do is they'll just kind of sit back, they'll sit behind stakes, they'll play very defensively, and they're very good, they're very good players, but the way they play, it's reactionary. As Chip likes to say, they're reactionary rather than proactive. And I think that's something that a lot of players are in this game. Instead of taking the initiative and putting the battle on their terms, they kind of just sit back and, I don't know, I guess wait for their opponents to mess up. That's kind of what I did this game, but that's only because Rick kind of offered a mistake really, really early on. But Rick being proactive this game, that's something I do want to commend him on, because not a lot of players do that. And had he been proactive in a more, I guess, effective manner, this battle could have definitely gone the other way. So yeah, I just want to thank Rick for a fun game as usual, and thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you later.